Well, good afternoon, Jules. You've had a good week, haven't you? The Suzuka 8R race and then England, India, the
Yes.
Test match. But racing back, we're not really allowed to talk about cricket, are we? So we
Oh, we
better
might
keep
take
it
up
going.
too much time if we went on about
Yeah,
this
no,
last series.
absolutely. But the 8R race was absolutely superb. We'll have a really good look at that. And you're the expert. I'm the fan, not really the expert, to be honest with you. We were talking last week when we went off air about press conferences that have been interesting. Sepang 2015, Rossi Marquez.
Oh,
Nobody will ever forget. The one I wasn't at, but I believe you were there, Killy Fogarty, when he appeared in his dressing gown and
that,
wanted to fight Carl Fogarty.
I was actually in the commentary box, not in the
Ah,
press conference.
probably safer. Probably
Um,
safer.
yeah, but that
Yeah.
was a classic, an absolute classic. That was 1998 at Assen, World
Rightio.
Supers. Um,
Stoner's retirement in Le Mans when
come
it
on.
caught everybody by surprise. And I just threw in Lorenzo and Simoncelli. What Simoncelli said to Lorenzo when he was so angry. He said Simoncelli was dangerous and everything. We'll find out what Simoncelli's reply was. Right, Suzuka 8 hours. One of the best ever. Crowd, what, 65,000? Off you go.
Oh, it was a proper endurance race. Now, the French know about endurance and they know about racing. And to the French, there are two types of racing. There is vitesse, speed. In other
Yeah,
words, bang, get going. There's the
yeah,
checkered flag. And endurance, endurance. And
yeah.
that's when you're allowed to talk about tactics and setup and schedules and that. You know, all that stuff they talk about all the time in Formula One and think it's vitesse. And
Yeah.
you had the classic in Suzuka last weekend, where the Honda kept on pulling out a lead, and then circumstances had pace car twice in the final
Yeah.
stages shut the gap right up again, and it came down to that pit stop schedule, didn't it? Really,
Yes, it did.
that Yamaha were leading within the last hour, but they needed another stop, and that was it. They had to go and get some petrol,
Yeah.
and the Honda came home to win. Honda, two riders only, held their nerve, but
Yeah.
wasn't
Takahashi and Zarko.
yeah, and
I
wasn't
wanted to sound like an expert then, by the way. I could just say
and
that.
kudos to Jack Miller on the Yamaha,
Yeah.
who really led the chase wholeheartedly. You've got to believe that'll have done his standing with the factory some good, haven't you?
Very much so, riding with Locatelli. But Zarko, I think, after the French Grand Prix and after the Suzuka 8 race, I think he can afford a holiday, can't he? Financially.
I think he could float to Tahiti on a raft of 10,000 yen notes. Frankly, it must be just try and imagine the size of his bonus this year.
Yeah, Honda's only winning MotoGP at his home Grand Prix,
Yep.
and then back-to-back wins at Suzuka with Takahashi. And as you say, Jack Miller and Locatelli on Yamaha did a good job. And what about Dan Linford?
Glad
Wow,
you
in third place.
glad you mentioned him. The factory Suzuki crash early on, dropped them right down the order, and they fought back to finish on the podium, which is a fantastic achievement. I mean, Dan got the Suzuki gig. He'd already gone to endurance and had ridden for some very decent teams. But when Sylvain Gintoli decamped to BMW as tester and factory endurance rider, then Dan filled the vacancy. And he was given the final hour to do, I noticed as well, which is always regarded as a bit of an honour.
Very much so. And BSB lads did well, didn't they? Leon Haslam, Josh Brooks, Davey Todd, all in there.
All impressed. I mean, we mentioned Leon Haslam last week. Watch him on the Kageyama Ducati. brackets, how much Bologna is there in this, close brackets?
Yeah, I remember you saying.
I think they just got up to third place when Marcel Schrotter tangled with a back marker at the hairpin. One of those things that happens in endurance, especially with pilots who maybe haven't done endurance before. When you've got 50 bikes on a narrow circuit like Suzuka, part of your job, a major part of your job, is not centre punching somebody who's a lot slower than you.
Yeah.
And it was a podium position, and you could see 3 hours in, wasn't it, or so, that happened. And Schrotter picked the bike up and he heading back to the pits, and he was banging the tank and, nutting the screen. He was distraught. He knew what he'd done.
Yeah. To me, as I say, as a fan of it now, not a new fan, but
Yeah.
I thought it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it.
It is. It's a bit like a box set, isn't it? It's a bit like a test match, not a one-day match.
No, I knew you'd get it in.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
You've got to let the plot develop and enjoy the little subplots that are going on. And I kept on wondering, how long till we see a full factory Ducati there?
Not long, I don't think. Do you?
I can't imagine it's going to be long, but because in the Motor Grand Prix paddock now, riders talk about the 8 hour.
As you said, yeah.
Back in our day, Nick, it was the only reason they talked about it was how to avoid it.
That's dead right. And moaning that usually after the Belgium Grand Prix at Spa, they had to rush to Brussels airport, catch the flight to Tokyo, and then ride in the 8 hour. But they all went because it's where the contracts were decided, and they knew they had to ride in it, and they knew winning it was such an honour for the factory.
Yes.
They could probably add another couple of noughts on when they were discussing
Absolutely.
the new 500 cc's in the next year.
Yeah, back to Aguma, the old boss of HRC, and his quote that if you wish to be a factory rider, the 8 hour is an examination you must pass.
There you go. Well, Johan Zarco certainly passed it once again. What a great season he has, and that's great because he's
nice?
He is such a good guy.
Mildly eccentric by Moto Grand Prix standards.
Mildly.
Wonderfully eccentric by Moto Grand Prix standards. And absolutely, I don't know of anybody who dislikes Johan Zarco.
Apart from on the track.
Some people might be confused by it.
He ruffled a few feathers when he came into MotoGP from Moto2, and I think Valentino Rossi in particular was pretty ruffled, wasn't he?
Well, yes, obviously, except for the people whose knees he's running over on track. Yeah, that's a good point. And I still treasure the best ever long lap penalty at Brno when Johan, right at the end of the race, wasn't it? After what I think was an unjust penalty for coming together with Paul Espargaro. And he just took it was in a left-hander, wasn't it? And he just took it at full hammer and kept his third place. It was, again, it was a proper Don Quixote tilting at windmills job, but he won it.
Yeah. I used to love him. We're coming on to press conference, and it leads on press conference. I just say, so what happened today? Then I could put my feet up, have a cup of tea, and just let it flow, because every little detail would be described and explained. So we're coming on to press conferences. Pre-event press conferences can be a little tedious. Is that a fair word? With Ryder saying, we're going to do this and we're going to do that, but some have caught us by surprise, and I don't think any more so, do you, than Sepang 2015. I was hosting it. I think you were there, weren't you?
I was sat in the back row on the corner because I arrived just in time, and I was sat next to the very experienced French journalist Michel Turcot.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember it well, because you're right, these Thursday press conferences, I think, were originally meant for local journalists, one event a year.
That's right.
People,
That's right.
to
They
get
were.
up to
Yeah.
speed and see some people
Yeah.
and ask. They
And
weren't
hear
really,
what they say about the circuit and all that sort of thing.
They weren't really meant for the turcos and the me, the every event people. But I remember when Valentino started talking, answering your question. Now, two things need remembering. Nobody had mentioned Phillip Island.
No.
The idea there was any...
Shall we just lay the plot a little bit before?
You lay the plot, Nick.
Okay, so Phillip Island was the week before, and it was one of the most amazing races I've ever commentated on. 50 overtakes in that race, which we worked out was more than a whole of that Formula One car season. More overtakes in one race at Phillip Island. Marquez went from Lorenzo, Andrea Iannone and Rossi. Off we go to Malaysia. We love going to Malaysia. We've been away for 3 weeks. The hotel had a swimming pool. You could go into town. Just everything was nice, and you were getting ready to go home. Pre-event press conference, in we go. Marquez, Rossi is sitting there. Rossi, as always, comes in a little bit late. And then the accusations started.
And what I was getting in front of myself saying just now is no one had seen anything controversial about Phillip Island. We'd gone a week, or nearly a week, just going, what, as you've just described it, what a race, what a race. The only person who you could accuse of messing up Valentino's weekend was Andrea Iannone.
Yeah, his great mate.
Who mugged him, put him proper on the last lap for third place.
Yeah.
So there we are. And you asked Valentino a question or set him off. And he starts saying, oh, well, Marquez, conspired against me with Lorenzo at Phillip Island. And I remember myself and Michel Turco, we just looked at each other and grinned because we thought it was a Valentino joke coming.
I thought it was a joke, and certainly the local journalists were absolutely determined it was a joke, and they thought, oh, it's a joke. But, I mean, one, he accused him of slowing the race to allow Lorenzo to finish in second place. And then he launched really personal song about, you've had pictures on your bedroom wall of me, I don't believe you. Well, it exploded, didn't it?
And Marquez kept a straight face. His jaw did drop a bit.
It was like, what is going on?
Yeah, Lorenzo was the one who was almost sniggering into his bottle of water. I remember I was about halfway down the second sheet of a notebook making notes, and I realised he's not joking.
And
I looked to my left, and Turco had just had the same revelation, and we looked at each other, and our eyes went out on stalks, and then we just turned back. It was simultaneous realisation that we were going to have a busy weekend. Never mind the racing, we were going to be doing a lot of writing.
Yeah, and afterwards in the press room, he produced graphs, didn't he? And lap charts and things. And of course, the Italian media by this time are absolute frenzy is a polite word, isn't it?
Oh, it wasn't nice.
It wasn't nice. And he'd done it before to Sete Gibernau after the race in Qatar. I remember that was Malaysia again.
It was.
And he came, as he always did, late to the press conferences, Valentino, wearing a big pair of dark glasses. And do you remember they had to start from the back of the grid because they swept the grid? Anyway.
And I asked by the regulations. It was a fair cop, Gov, and he was done for it.
Yeah. So I said to Sete, what about what happened in Qatar? I said, all forgotten. No, that's water under the bridge. Rossi arrives, dark glasses, sits down. No. He said, I'll tell you one thing. Sete Gibernau will never win another Grand Prix race. And he didn't.
The curse of Qatar, as it was later
erroneously
known. Yeah.
I mean, Valentino was probably the greatest motorcycle racer of all time, but he dominated everything for 15 years, didn't he? On and off the track. And I think he was going to try and really unsettle Marc Marquez. Well, as it turned out, that weekend, we found out he'd picked the wrong man, hadn't he?
He had, because what happened at the start of the race was that Marc Marquez went, "Oh, you thought I was messing about in Australia, did you? I'll show you what messing about is, mate."
Yeah.
And he put a bunch of passes on Rossi that wouldn't have really raised an eyebrow on a last lap.
Yeah.
But in the first 3 or 4 laps, you were, oh dear, nothing over the line, but hard as you like.
And on that fateful lap when it all happened, I think, did they overtake each other 9 times on that lap?
It was
war, wasn't it? I don't think I've ever seen war like that on a motorcycle.
No, never. And because lap times, they didn't care. They were just lining each other up for moves.
Yeah.
And by the way,
Danny Pedrosa had cleared off, and Lorenzo was in second place, wasn't it?
Beautiful race, all on his own,
unaware of anything that was happening. Dear old Danny, nobody was watching him, were they? And then it's the corner coming into the back straight, isn't it? And Marquez was trying to slow him, and Rossi, I think, was trying to slow him because he knew once they got into that back straight, Marquez could get away into the hairpin that brought them into the start.
Basically, he ran him off the track.
Yeah.
He just blocked him and pushed him. It was the most astonishing thing I've seen a world champion, never mind a man of Rossi's stature.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing, if I may have a trumpet blowing moment myself.
Please do. Hang on.
Thank you to the band. I got it right, along with Keith, commentating live. It's, I am probably lucky as well as grateful that we got it right. And I think we didn't have to explain, 2 weeks later in Valencia and go in and do analysis. We called it right. And what I think I said at Valencia was, in that press conference, we don't know who'd got to Valentino between Phillip Island and Malaysia, who'd been in his ear saying, this happened. Because there was no hint of it after the race. But somebody got in his ear, and in that press conference, he talked himself out of his 10th World Championship.
Yeah, he did. And then, of course, we had the press conference after the race. So up I step again. Oh, there's only 2 people in the press conference after the race at the moment. Lorenzo and the winner, Danny Pedrosa. Where were the other 2 or the other one? It was Valentino Rossi who'd finished 3rd. No, son. He was in the headmaster's office, and they were going through this, that, and it was getting more and more. Danny Pedrosa and Hoyer were getting angrier and angrier in their leathers still, smelling of champagne. Nobody knew what was going on. The Italians were going. So I remember telling everybody, go back into the press room, which was right next door, wasn't it?
Yes.
The conference room. And as soon as anything happens, I will tell you. Well, in the end, it came out that Valentino had been docked 3 points.
Enough points to make sure that he went to the back of the grid in Valencia.
Well, that's right. We didn't realise that to start with. We thought, oh, that's fine. Then he'd been docked a point for blocking Lorenzo in qualifying at Misano, I think it was.
Yes,
yeah.
he already had some enforcements on the licence. This was the 3rd one.
And that was enough.
Yep.
To say you have to start from the back of the grid in Valencia. And, as you so rightly said, it cost him the world championship. He went into that Malaysian race 11 points in the lead. But, yeah, it was done. And then we won't talk about Valencia now because...
I'll say one thing about Valencia.
Wow.
Yeah, the atmosphere was poisonous. Valentino was only ever going to finish 4th in that race at Valencia.
It was.
The
3 Spaniards, but finish in front of him.
The grid penalty only meant he finished that far behind, not that far behind.
Yeah, it did, yeah.
It had no discernible effect on the result.
So that was that one, and you were there. I was hosting. I had nothing to do with the Killy Fogarty one, but John Brown, I think, was hosting. And he told me it was unbelievable because Killy appeared in a dressing gown at the door of the press conference room and started shouting things at Fogarty. Tell me more,
Little bit of background.
please.
Foggy was the master of Assen.
Yeah.
He was third in the championship. This is in the 98 Superbike Championship. I think something like 19 points behind, halfway through. Not a big deal. But Ducati had made it known there will only be 2 factory bikes next season. Troy Corser was leading the championship at 1, Keeley was second, and Foggy was third. So there was employment. That's just to add a bit, isn't it?
Yeah, that's livened it up.
Yeah, first race, Foggy did his normal thing, led all the way. Keeley mugged him on the last lap. Carl, as only a real racer can say, I'm the only bloke who can lead a race round here.
Of course.
Of course. Second race, Keeley leading, and Carl mugs him. Well, in the very fast corners leading up to the final chicane.
Oh my God, that fast left-hander.
Yeah, did him.
The Marquez corner, is it? There's nobody fast between there.
Got him there.
Marquez, yeah.
And Keeley crashed at the chicane trying to a Hail Mary to get back at him.
Right.
And as you say, they stopped in part after the slowdown lap. And Foggy sat in his bike, and Keeley came up and was giving him, all that.
Daggers.
Carl did a burnout and smoked the place. Tardozzi had hold of the chin bar of Fogarty's helmet with the visor open and was jabbing a finger in and saying to Carl, shut up and off. Shut up, off. Which Carl did. And then, as you said, Keeley invaded the press conference in a
dressing gown.
In a toweling dressing gown. The most stylish racer in the known universe turns up in a blue toweling dressing gown to offer to thump Carl Fogarty.
That's some better than some of those pre-event ones, aren't they?
Yes. And by the way, Keeley left Ducati, did not get a Ducati next year. The next year he was now Star A Suzuki rider.
What a great lad, Frankie.
And by the way, him and Foggy became quite good friends, totally against the character of Carl, you might say. They were fine. But they were.
I remember him winning one 500cc Grand Prix. And that was Misano, 1989. All the stars. It poured with rain, didn't it? And all the stars. I think there was. I was checking the facts. 22 retirements. They all dropped out, didn't they? And the racers.
I was there for that one.
I was. And Killy, Italian. Lived in Rimini, didn't he, or Riccione? Pirelli tyres. He had to go out and race, and he had to go out and race.
Italian team, Italian tyres. He had no choice. He did not want to. The thing is, the Misano surface back then, in the rain,
the other way round, wasn't it? Yeah,
the other way round, and in the rain, it was dire.
Yeah,
dire. And my one memory of that is I was wandering up and down the pits and I bumped into Neil Mackenzie, who told me, it's a good job the runoff is that wide on the back straight because they were lobbing bottles at us. And we were just far enough away. And he said, what were they shouting at us? And we asked, they were shouting, rabbits. rabbits. Bottle.
The sight of that race I will never forget. Eddie Lawson sat on the pit wall the whole of the second race where Killy went past with one finger in the air, which did not represent to say he was in first place. It meant something else. But great lad, Killy, and he had the bar, didn't he, and the restaurant. Denver still got it at Misano on the beach there, which
he owned.
Quite frequent it, yeah.
Yeah, he had a franchise for a big block of sun loungers or
The whole way. They all had those on the beach, and you can't go on the beach unless you pay for the sun loungers.
Frankie Keeley turns up with the bus conductor's outfit and, takes your money.
And the other one, I'm going on to others, but one, I think it was Estoril. Oh my golly, Lorenzo was so angry with dear old Marco Simoncelli, who could be quite wild at times, couldn't he? And he was going on and on and on to him about being so dangerous.
Yes, yeah. I remember Dennis Noyes writing that Marco could ride like the school bully.
Yeah,
but he's not alone in that, I feel.
No, that's right. So in the end, he was going on, and Marco put his hand up and looked at Lorenzo and said, "So what are you going to do? You're going to call the police," he said. But of course, everybody then just burst into laughter, and it sort of...
I know. And there's nothing Jorge hated more than his dignity being punctured like that.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. And the other one, well, Casey Stoner. Do you remember 2012 Le Mans? And I was hosting the press conference, and just before the press conference, Casey and Reese Edwards, the HRC, the Honda
press officer,
Repsol Honda press officer, said, "Nick, can we have a word before the press conference?" Yeah. Well, Le Mans, it's upstairs, the press room, and there was like a back room. It was like a village hall where all the chairs were stacked up and everything. It was musty smelling. It wasn't much of a... And they said, "Do you mind if we make an announcement before the start of the press conference?" So I checked with Tony. Yeah, no, fine, because we all thought he was going to say, "I've just renewed my contract with Honda." Good news at a pre-event press conference, a real bit of news. So in we go, we sit down. Casey says, I said, "Look, Casey wants to make a statement before the press conference gets underway." He stood up, and I can see Valentino Rossi's face now, sat just behind him. "I'm retiring at the end of the season. I've had enough. I've fallen out of love with MotoGP." Absolute silence for about 10 seconds. Then everybody, I'm not saying Valentino Rossi, but everybody stood up and applauded. I'll never forget. And Casey said, that was it. And he had fallen out of love with MotoGP. And I often think of Casey, Jules, as one of the real unsung stars of MotoGP. The Eddie Lawsons, the Phil Reeds, people who perhaps never got quite the worship that Rossi, Hayward, Sheen, he was very special. Two world titles, but 38 MotoGP Grand Prix wins on a Ducati and a Honda, and he was a complicated lad. I won't say complicated, but he knew what he wanted. He knew his own mind, and he'd had enough, hadn't he? He'd had it.
Yeah, that press conference was very emotional because Casey was clearly in turmoil, inner turmoil. And he, as you say, he the one statement he made above and beyond that original one was that he didn't like the way the sport was going.
Yeah.
And which covered a it's very... That could mean everything and nothing. But Absolutely. It was absolutely clear that he'd had it with the pressure, with whatever. And you're right, he is underappreciated because I think, much like Freddie Spencer, who I think is a great analogy, they are alike in so many ways.
Yeah.
That they never get mentioned as an all-time great because they weren't around for long enough. An all-time great means length of career, which those two most certainly did not have.
Oh, Casey spoke his mind. Nobody else would have gone up pit lane when Rossi brought him down. Rossi was on the Ducati. He must have been on the Honda then.
Yes.
Casey said, first corner Jerez, and he said, "Well," when he looked at Rossi, he said, "There's somebody whose desire is not, whose talent, whose ambition isn't matched by his talent.
Yes.
I'll never forget. Only Casey, only Casey would have done that. But he's
Rossi going, what? Sorry? Keeping his crash helmet on.
Yeah, and he came from Australia where he was dirt track. His mum and dad brought him over. Colin and Bronwyn. Racing had been his whole life. They lived in a caravan, I think, on the edge of the Lake District when he rode in the British Championship and progressed from there. He'd known nothing else but racing, Casey had it. And I think he had a family, he had a lovely wife, he had a farm in Australia. And I think he decided, I've had enough of all this.
Nick, he did, in his view, he didn't need the bullshit.
No.
And he wanted to go fishing.
That's right. And hunting. He liked hunting.
Yeah, bow and arrow in the bush.
That's right.
And fishing. And so he did, basically. Yeah.
I remember Casey when he first came to Grand Prix. He was great friends with Chas Davis. They rode in the British Championship together, and I knew Chas really well. And as you do in Malaysia, you go out, don't you? Go on the train into Malaysia, into Kuala Lumpur, and then you go to the markets to do your bargaining. I wanted a pair of Adidas trainers. Well, not real Adidas trainers, but they do.
Whisper it.
Yeah. So I went in and started. But Casey said, Nick, you go out and you just leave this to me. He was about 18 at the time. Oh, okay, Casey. 3 times he came out of the shop with the shopkeeper chasing after him. Well, perhaps he got them 10 times cheaper than I'd been offered at the start. And that was Casey, wasn't it? He knew what he wanted, and he normally got. And to see him in action at Filipino, and I was thinking about this afternoon, around that third turn, he won there 6 times on the trot, and they named the corner after him. One of the finest sights I've ever seen in Grand Prix motorcycle racing.
And for once, they named the right corner after him.
They did. That's absolutely right.
And I think it was the year before they named the corner, he was taking over a third of a second out of that field in
he was
sector.
Yeah, sliding Honda as it was then, but earlier the Ducati, of course. Yeah. He brought Ducati their first world title, of course, in the Premier class when it was 800cc. No, somebody, very, very special indeed. Yeah.
Wouldn't you have loved to see him race Marquez?
Oh, I was just going to say that.
But a caveat there, Casey would have hated it.
Yeah.
Because Marquez would have known exactly what to do to get him wound up.
Yeah. That's why we're looking forward to Toprak coming into MotoGP and racing. Let's see. But just before we go, Thruxton, somewhere you've never been to, you tell me?
I've never known for some reason. I've never been.
In Dark Hampshire, yeah. I haven't been very often, to be honest. Yeah. And do you know, I reckon the last time I went there, Casey Stoner was riding a 125 in the British Championship.
Quite likely, yeah.
Yeah. We used to go to motocross there. They had motocross meetings in the evenings, and they used to get a really good field. I remember I went there quite a few times to motocross, and one of my first marshalling jobs was there. I was there with dear old Dave Locke, who finished 4th in the 50cc TT. I was the flag man. He was going to help pick riders up. Off they went, down into the ditch in front of us. I held the yellow flag out. It was raining. It was muddy. I held the yellow flag out for about 5 minutes. No sign of anybody. I thought, what do I do here? And then it was dear old Fred Launchbury. Do you remember Fred Launchbury?
I remember Fred Launchbury.
Yeah. And he appeared at the top of the ditch, having to help dear old Dave out. The marshal was being pulled out of the ditch by the rider who had crashed. I never forget. That was my first ever trip to Thruxton.
Got to enjoy it. But it's going to be interesting because it is still one of the fastest places you'll ever see on any calendar.
Yeah, that's right. They put a few chicanes in since I last went. It is still quick. Yeah, old airfield. Yeah.
Glenn Irwin's left Paul Bird and gone to OMG, and there's all sorts of shenanigans going on in that paddock at the moment.
There is. Well, Ray and Ryder obviously going to go for it, but we like our former Grand Prix winners, don't we?
Well,
Reading
Scotty.
and Kent. It would be really interesting to see.
It will be. It's always a fabulous track to watch on, even if occasionally I'm watching sort of through the gaps in my fingers, because it is a scary, scary place.
And it's a circuit very much in an area on its own. So it is the really big one motorcycle event of the year in that part of the world. And certainly there's motocross down there, but certainly road racing. So they always get a very, very big and enthusiastic crowd. It's a really good event to go to.
Let me stick my size 9 in, because the warning has just sounded.
Oh, rightio. Okay, so next week, it's the 1000th Premier Class Grand Prix since 1949 in 2 weeks' time at the Red Bull Ring in Austria. So there's only one person we can bring in to go through the facts about that. Dr. Martin Reins, I've just been talking to him. He says he'll do it unless he gets a better offer. Well, I said to him, you're getting no offer from us. So, but you'll be finding out who's the oldest Premier Class winner, the longest and shortest Premier Class races, and the fastest ever race. Where was it?
Spa, and it was Barry Sheen. Thank you.
There you spoiled it now. That was meant to be.
It's the only one I knew the answer to.
Right. So if you've got any questions, let us know. We'll have a look at our preview Austria as well. But great fun today, great memories, and lovely talking about Casey Stoner. I really enjoyed it, Jules.
And me too, Nick. Yes. As you said, in many ways, the great lost talent.